Have you ever stopped to think about why we spend so much time scrolling through social media? It's more than just a distraction. It's a full-blown battle for your attention. And the most surprising part? Every like you give, every post you share, is like placing a piece on the board of a much larger game. But are you playing to win, or just following the invisible rules set by digital giants? Oh, I just like silly stuff, you might think. But even that seemingly harmless act has implications far beyond what meets the eye. What you like and share reveals who you are. Sounds like an exaggeration? Know this. Your online behavior not only shapes your image, but also influences what people around you consume, believe, and even defend. Intrigued? Stay with me, because you're about to discover how these simple interactions can change the world, for better or worse. And more importantly, I'll show you how to wield this power consciously and transformatively. Are you ready to understand the real impact of your clicks? Have you ever wondered why we feel that surge of satisfaction when we see a notification on our phone? The human brain, this fascinating maze of impulses and connections, is a big fan of instant rewards. When you get a like or a positive comment, your brain releases dopamine, the chemical responsible for feelings of pleasure. It's the same mechanism that makes us want one more slice of cake or just one more round of a video game. But while the cake eventually runs out and the game has an ending, online validation seems like a bottomless pit. Plato once said, "An unexamined life is not worth living." Maybe it's time to examine where this impulse comes from. The problem is that instant rewards can create a kind of invisible prison. Imagine a rat pressing a button that dispenses food whenever it's hungry. That's essentially what we do, on a more sophisticated level, when we compulsively check our devices. The more likes and notifications we get, the more we crave them, as if the next one might finally be the one. But like the rat, we end up trapped in the cycle. To break free, try detoxing your mind. Set aside moments in your day without your phone, take a walk, or dive into a thought-provoking book, like Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. And here's the kicker. This craving for immediate gratification can distract us from deeper, more lasting achievements. Imagine someone spending hours chasing virtual validation while neglecting real relationships or important goals. It's like planting seeds in a desert, lots of energy spent for little return. Aristotle said, "Happiness depends upon ourselves." So, if we want a more fulfilling future, perhaps the secret lies in training our brains to desire less of the now and more of the timeless. Speaking of which, how does social validation influence our self-esteem? When someone likes or comments on your post, something almost magical happens in your brain. A burst of dopamine, the happiness hormone. It's as if each interaction is a small digital round of applause saying, "You matter." This social validation is so powerful that it can be compared to the joy of a great conversation or even winning a game. Nietzsche once said, "Man is something that shall be overcome," and in this context, overcoming the addiction to online approval may be the challenge of our time. However, this constant search for validation comes at a cost. A brain accustomed to this flood of stimuli can start depending on it to feel good. It's as if self-esteem becomes hostage to virtual reactions. Consider a young person who shares something creative, but feels frustrated when it doesn't get as many likes as expected. Does the lack of engagement invalidate their expression? Of course not, but the brain, tricked by this reward system, believes it does. To break this cycle, a practical idea is to create challenges outside the virtual world, like learning a new skill where progress is tangible. Now imagine the cumulative impact of this over time. If our sense of self-worth is tied to others' approval, what happens when that approval falters? The answer may lie in building a stronger sense of self-esteem rooted in who we are, not in what others think of us. As Epictetus said, it's not things that disturb us, but our opinions about them. But does the positive feedback loop of social media help or hinder our ability to build this vision of ourselves? It's intriguing to think about how a simple act, like a like, can trap us in a nearly endless cycle of seeking approval. Each like received is like a whisper saying, "You're on the right track." But the truth is, the human brain is insatiable. It always wants more. This mechanism can be likened to hunger. We're satisfied for a moment, but soon hungry again. Schopenhauer said, "Life is a constant oscillation between desire and boredom," and perhaps social media has encapsulated this perfectly. This vicious cycle, however, is fueled not just by pleasure but also by fear. Fear of being irrelevant, forgotten, or not fitting in. Imagine someone who, after posting a photo, spends hours revisiting the post to count likes or respond to comments. This behavior reflects latent anxiety, a constant need for reinforcement. To escape this, create a mental filter. Before posting something, ask yourself if you're sharing it for genuine joy or to fill a void. This simple reflection can be liberating. And don't be mistaken, the impact goes beyond the digital world. This relentless quest for recognition can lead us to sacrifice authenticity for popularity. We start shaping our actions to what we think others want to see, rather than what we truly are. It's like wearing a mask at an eternal masquerade ball, where no one truly knows the face behind it. Kierkegaard warned, "The greatest despair is to be someone other than oneself." Perhaps it's time to explore how this disconnection between virtual image and real self affects our self-esteem. The image we project on social media often functions as a distorted mirror, reflecting not who we are, but who we wish to be. It's fascinating and terrifying how the virtual self can become more important than the real self. When we invest energy into creating a perfect avatar, we distance ourselves from our essence. As Carl Jung said, the person who looks outside dreams, the one who looks inside awakens. But are we waking up, or just daydreaming about an idealized version of ourselves? This disconnect can have profound consequences for self-esteem. Consider someone who constantly edits their photos or exaggerates captions to seem more interesting. This effort, though seemingly harmless, can create a sense of emptiness. After all, when validation depends on something fabricated, it's hard to feel truly accepted. A practical way to combat this is to dedicate time to self-discovery. Write about your values in a journal, ask yourself what genuinely makes you happy, or engage in activities that reveal your authenticity, like volunteering or creative hobbies. What's most intriguing is that this duality between the real self and the virtual self isn't just an individual issue. It affects how we relate to the world. We seek external approval to fill internal gaps, but forget that such approval is fleeting. As Soren Kierkegaard said, "Freedom is the ability to say yes to yourself." But how can we achieve this freedom when we're so caught up in others' perceptions? Perhaps the answer lies in how we allow online validation to shape our sense of personal worth. We live in an era where likes have the power to shape narratives and form opinions. Every like or share is like a spark in a wildfire, spreading ideas at unprecedented speeds. This creates a dynamic where public validation becomes a crucial factor in the dissemination of information. Nietzsche once observed, "Convictions are more dangerous enemies of truth than lies." In our rush to please the majority, are we sacrificing the pursuit of truth? The herd effect, a well-documented psychological phenomenon, perfectly illustrates this dynamic. When we see that an idea or cause has widespread online support, we're inclined to follow it, often without critical analysis. Imagine a viral video promoting a product or a controversial idea. How many people actually stop to investigate its validity before sharing it? A practical exercise to avoid this behavior is simple. Before hitting the share button, ask yourself, why do I agree with this? This small moment of reflection can prevent mistakes and foster more meaningful discussions. Interestingly, this quest for collective validation not only influences our choices, but also shapes our beliefs. We begin to mold our values according to what's popular, forgetting that true progress often comes from independent thought. As Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment." But how do we balance intellectual autonomy with the need to belong? Perhaps the answer lies in how the digital world uses influence to capture our attention. In the digital world, attention has become the most valuable currency. Companies, influencers, and platforms fiercely compete for every second we spend looking at our screens. It's no wonder algorithms are designed to keep us engaged, offering an endless stream of personalized content. As Marshall McLuhan said, "The medium is the message," and in this case, the digital medium is shaping not just what we consume, but how we think. Have you ever stopped to reflect on how much of your time you truly control? This economy is sustained by an invisible yet powerful structure: the monetization of popularity. Every like and share translates into data, which in turn generates profit for companies. Think of YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok, platforms that turn engagement into revenue, creating a cycle where our attention becomes the product. An interesting exercise to understand this is to monitor your online time with tools like Rescue Time or Moment, which reveal how minutes accumulate in seemingly harmless interactions. And while we, the users, give up our attention, we lose something even more valuable: the freedom to choose. The content we consume is carefully curated to keep us scrolling, clicking, and reacting. As a result, we often set aside our priorities in favor of distractions. Viktor Frankl said, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies the power to choose our response." Are we using that space or merely reacting automatically? Perhaps the way we curate our own content has more impact than we realize. What you like and share on social media says more about you than many imagine. Each interaction, no matter how small, contributes to building your public image. a digital mosaic that reflects your values, interests, and beliefs. It's fascinating to think that, in times of such exposure, we're constantly editing our reputation. As Aristotle said, we are what we repeatedly do. In this case, the likes we give might be more revealing than we think. This social currency, represented by likes and followers, carries significant weight in how we connect with others. Imagine a professional who shares articles in their field, reinforcing their authority and attracting meaningful connections. On the flip side, inconsistent or contradictory content can breed distrust. A practical strategy is to choose carefully what you endorse. Before sharing something, ask yourself if it truly resonates with who you are or want to be. This reflection can turn likes into tools for personal and professional growth. However, this curation goes beyond pragmatism. It also involves our authenticity. When we worry too much about pleasing others, we risk losing sight of what truly matters to us. As Oscar Wilde once said, "Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken." In balancing relevance and truth, are likes bringing us closer to or further from our essence? Perhaps the constant quest for approval is creating more challenges than genuine connections. Now that you understand the power a simple click can have, the question remains: what will you do with this knowledge? Will you keep navigating on autopilot, letting algorithms choose for you? Or will you start using your social networks consciously, shaping the impact you want to have on the world? Remember, every like, every share is a statement, even if a silent one, about who you are and what you value. Are you ready to take on that responsibility? Reflect on your digital interactions and ask yourself, does this align with the person I want to be? Maybe it's time to clean up your timeline, follow people who inspire you, and share what truly matters. And why not start now? Apply what you've learned and see how small changes can transform not only your online experience, but also that of those around you. Oh, and of course, if you want to keep exploring topics like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way, you won't miss any videos that can help you see the world more deeply and consciously. Ready to join this journey?